Yeah, let's keep moving.
Okay, well, chapter 2 is Bucking Bronco. So we start actually with George Lucas's origin story, where he came from, his how he grew up, the car accident he was in. Again, I not knowing the history of George Lucas, everybody seemed to have known about this car accident he almost died from. So again, I will turn in my Star Wars fan card in.
I didn't know that, Rob.
Oh, you didn't know that? Okay, so you may will be hanging outside looking through the window then.
Yeah.
So, but I enjoyed looking at all the old pictures of him standing in that crew. It's just amazing. Just again, you go back in time and you just look at this kid and thinking, this guy's creating Star Wars. This guy's creating ILM. This guy's a big deal. And he's hanging around with Steven Spielberg and help me out here, Godfather.
Oh, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, Coppola.
I mean, what a group of people to be hanging out with, right?
Oh my God, yeah. And he's following around. He's doing a film about him recording a film, and it's just kind of cool to see.
Wasn't he an assistant? He was an assistant for Coppola.
No, the guy asked, "Who's your assistant?" He's like, "Oh, he's not an assistant. He's just a guy just filming me doing this."
Oh yeah, doing a documentary or something like that.
Doing a documentary. So this is where we get introduced to people like Rose. Is it Dugnan? I couldn't pronounce her last name, but she's the one that brings organization to the crew.
Dugnan, yeah.
Dugnan, yes.
Dugnan, yeah.
I'm so sorry I mispronounced the name, but it was good to hear her take on it, how she saw Dykstra, and you see these behind the scenes of Dykstra interviewing the dog, and how he wanted to get in there and he wanted to do everything. It was just really neat to see her take on it and see how much of a royal friggin' mess this was. Everything was disorganized, so they would take time and put it in the book and organize it. It really helped. So what'd you guys get out of this chapter?
Well, I just said I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I saw there. It was good to get, like you said, get all that behind the scenes stuff. But we did get to see that George was pissed at Dykstra. I mean, was it in this episode we learned that he thought he was having a heart attack? And
yes, I believe so.
Because the stress was so much, and then who is it that came walking in on him? One of the guys came walking in on him just out of the blue.
That was Ken Ralston.
And they were in the middle of the most heated argument, and he can't remember what it was about. And yeah, so I mean, like we said earlier, we don't know what happened, but I think you can guess what happened and why he wasn't invited up to San Francisco, right? Yeah. Because I think George Lucas to me seems like the sort of person where if you fail him or if you don't allow him to move forward, then he probably won't keep you around, right?
Yeah.
Because it looks to me as his frustration levels have not been able to get anything out of his head and put it into practice. To have someone there that's going to stop that from happening from him or add a kink to that chain, he's not going to. But he gave him his due, and I think he like Jamie said earlier, I think it was Jamie said, like they really put him to the place he should be, because he was the person that created all this stuff for it to move forward, and they even took all of his Frankenstein equipment up to San Francisco.
Dykstra camp, yeah.
Right, so, I think they appreciate his genius, but he appreciates he couldn't do the structure they wanted him to do.
Jamie, what about you? What'd you get out of this chapter?
Honestly, I'm having trouble separating the episodes, mostly just because I did watch them just back to back to back.
Right.
So Rob, you'll have to help me out. I'm sure I'm gonna jump all over the place.
Well, I do have a couple things then. So I wrote down here, it's fascinating how a lot of these chance circumstances came together, kind of like we talked earlier, but even just building this and kit bashing that, and just there's a lot of things that just seem to have worked in their favor, and the challenges of Star Wars, but the pressure of getting it done and all the film laying around, which really surprised me. And we get into this later, I think in chapter 4 about digital editing, but just all that film in just these, looks like these laundry baskets hanging in the middle of the room. I can't imagine that. I freak out when I leave like an SD card on the table. It gathers dust, and these guys have got film everywhere.
It's the Wild West for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the hell they collected so many people with that attitude of just, we can't do this with what we have. We'll just invent something that allows us to do it. Just the amount of just technology that they invented. Like, you have to help me out with names here. I think it was Richard Edlund. So they were talking about compositing and how limiting compositing was, because they only had the tech to use two film reels to composite together. He's like, why don't we just make something that allows us to use more reels at once? Like,
Yeah.
And they did 4 in the end, didn't they?
They did 3 or
reels?
4.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems so dumb to think like, oh yeah, obviously, but like, I guess it's just people just living in the status quo of, oh well, this is what we have tech wise, so this is what we're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
And these guys are just like, nah, we'll just make something that allows us to do what we want faster and easier. Like I love that stuff. And it seemed, I think the same guy invented like some kind of guitar pedal. Like,
Yes,
not even
the
like
nose or something like that.
yeah, just not
Oh, it was
even
an amp.
something
It was
for
a,
film.
an amp.
It was a mini amp, and everybody
Yeah.
in music was loving the sound quality of this mini amp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Frank
just,
Zappa.
it's something that he was passionate about, and he just, it's all these people who just have a very futurist mentality. They just come up with, well, this doesn't exist yet, but I want it, so
Yeah.
I'm going to invent it.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's and that is the, I guess, the mantra of ILM. We need to do this. We can't do this. Okay, invent something that will do this. Okay, we did it.
I think
There you go, done.
I think
What's next?
we see that more being. I think in episode 3 we see it more, but that comes from George Lucas's unwillingness to have anyone say no, and he says, well, I think we'll probably get onto that.
Just think about it.
Just think about it. And there was a great scene with Dennis Muren explaining
We'll
about
get
that
into
happening.
That's
Yeah,
a great one.
But from episode 2, the other thing I took away from that was, the scene we see, the synonymous scene we see, the one we all know and relate to in Star Wars, which is the opening scene, the one that blew everyone out of their seats.
Mm-hmm.
The way they filmed that. I mean,
upside down.
I probably knew about it, but I didn't know about it, if you know what I mean. I probably heard about it, but to see it being done and have it explained to me by the people that did it was fascinating.
Yeah.
It was upside down and backwards. They filmed it in reverse and upside down so they could get it as close as they could get it to that ship, and then it makes you feel as if that ship's, I mean, nowadays you don't even think about it, but that was genius, man.
I love the mentality and just the thought process behind motion control. Like, what possessed anyone to move the camera and not the ship?
Yeah.
Like, that's so backwards to me. And I'm sure everyone else in the film industry at the time just thinking about that. Like, I love that mentality of doing things totally backwards in order to get what they wanted.
The way I took it in from that, in exactly what you're saying, but the way that it kind of came across to me was it was all about the light source, because the light source was the sun, and if they were to move the ship, the light source would have to move with it. Whereas if you kept this light source and moved the camera, the light source stayed constant because of the sun. And that made so much sense. And that's why I love that. I love that scene of the Falcon backing out of the hangar. They actually backed it out of, and I love that.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It's so good to look at. They dived into Phil Tippett and the creatures.
Yes.
Also with John Berg, I believe it was.
For the chessboard.
Yeah, that too. I was just thinking of the Cantina stuff, but also I'm you know me, I love my aliens. But it was cool to see them like diving into that world and then doing the stop motion animation for the chessboard and just seeing Chewbacca and C-3PO looking at nothing. Just his empty chessboard's like, oh yeah. Yes. But it was nice to get into that little dive of the aliens and how Phil Tippett was. He just put his hand in one of the aliens and there you go, and he's created Duras over here. Now he's Hammerhead over there.
Yeah, he's sticking the heads on himself and going out and doing it, which is so cool.
Just get in there, get in the costume and do it. And he does it later on with Max Rebo, which is a lovely story as well. So.
I also love the fact that Lucas's first idea was to have people in costume be the players on the chessboard, but another movie came out like Future World or something like that.
Oh yeah,
that had already done it, and he was like, "Well, can't do it then. It's embarrassing. I can't do that." And then they said, "Well, let's do stop motion."
I'm so glad they didn't do it. They did it in Star Wars Holiday Special. That's what they did it in, and we know how well that worked. So, in fact, you dressed up as one of the characters. If I remember.
I don't know what you're talking about. And I'll do it again, I tell you.
We got you in your green tights. So, I think there's nothing else really from this chapter. It was just a nice look back at the rest of how Star Wars. Okay, we got to pick up our bootstraps and let's get this going, and it was a huge success.
Yeah.
So we go to chapter. So now,
sorry, Rob. Was this the one that we see him play? The rough cut to all of his friends like Spielberg and Coppola at the ranch, and there's nothing there apart from footage of World War II dogfighting and just like scene to come later, and they're all like, "What the hell?
What are you showing us, Lucas?" And as Spielberg and what's his face were the only ones, the producer were the only ones that are like, "Yeah, I think we got something here." So even though Spielberg was looking at it, still thinking, "Oh." By the way, Kurtz's beard, Quaker beard, friggin', I love that beard. That's an awesome look.
Is it?
I think so. I'm not gonna pull it off myself.
Well, you can't think it then, Rob.
Brown turtleneck and you just give him a pipe and patches on his elbows. You're set to go.
I think you should try that look.
Just pull an Abe Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah, try it. Try it, Rob. I want you to try it.
I can't. Well, I can't grow anything around here. It's just not happening. So I'll work.
If
I'll
we
shave and take a pic.
If we don't make it through this today and we have to do a finish, we'll do it with that beard on.
Okay.
All of us, Jamie.
I think we're doing good because we're on chapter 3. So.